the Kelly Studios at a supremely urban high school in beautiful Motown. The school day's most exciting hour, fantastic academics, the fabulous English language arts class. Reading, literature, comprehension, come on down. Grammatical convention, come on down. Vocabulary acquisition, come on down. And writing mechanism, come on down. These are the four main contestants in ELA. And now, here is the instructor of high school English, Professor Kelly.
Alright, so for the rest of the story, so remember, Anderson set up, so remember well, first of all, we are officially in the class practice segment of the lesson, where I guide, but you all lead. And it's class practice because we're practicing, Ayana, we're about to do warning number 2, where class practice is the class practice because you're practicing what you're going to do in the independent practice. Okay, so we have the annotation inference model box, but it's modeled by me. I'm only doing the first half of the story for you, Miss Pentecost. The second half of the story, you are totally doing it on your own, on autopilot. You're doing the exact same thing. So that's what is being modeled. You are going to be identifying important ideas and writing them down. You will have a certain amount that you'll have to obtain. And you'll be writing down unknown words and also defining them. Okay, you will be responsible for creating a certain amount of inferences from the questions that I have created for you. So remember what she said from the making an inference, from the annotating video. Ms. Sam, sit up please. She said that you put a question mark next to areas of uncertainty.
Number 2, use question marks in the book to indicate areas of certainty, so uncertainty. So anytime you're reading and you're like, what? Put a question.
And those areas of uncertainty may be confusing at first, but they give us an opportunity to make an inference, because in high school and beyond, the objective of reading is to comprehend. And we're not reading for enjoyment. We're reading to understand and to take it further. We take what's in the text and we utilize it either for writing or for discussion. Okay? So I provided all the questions in the book for, I've assumed all the areas of uncertainty for you, and I've created questions that will lead you to make inferences. Okay, so the first one that you should have on your paper is for the class practice. You should have under connect questions, write this down, Gilmer, in your lower left-hand box. Who kidnapped the narrator and his sister? So we've already made one inference. Well, we've made a number of inferences. Write this down, please, in the lower left-hand box. We've already made a number of inferences from we're writing number 1. And we've already written, is that right? Didn't we already write this down? Yeah. So, everybody wrote it down except for Gilmer. So, but we are going to figure out who kidnapped the narrator and their sister, because we're nosy, and this is what would naturally come to mind when we're reading, is who did it. Especially like when we're watching the news, or who did it. Okay? So, this is what we're working on. Alright, so I'm going to start off, just for the class practice video, I'm going to start off again at the top of 147, even though we're past this, where it says, in this way. And remember, wherever I stop, I want you all in unison to read the very next word like a choir. So we read over this already, but we're just going to go back through it because I'm recording this for the class practice video. Alright, anyhow, in this way, okay, that was about 3 of us over here. I need all of us to be on 147, the first column, the second line. It says, in this way. Okay, wherever I stop, you all say the very next word. Everybody needs to be participating. All eyes should be on the book. In this way. Thank you. In this way, I grew up till I was turned the age of 11, when an end was put to my happiness in the following manner. When the grown people in the neighborhood were gone far in the fields to labor, the children generally assembled together in some of the neighbors' premises to play. And some of us often used to get up into a tree to look out for an assailant or kidnapper that might come upon us. For they sometimes took those opportunities of our parents' absence to attack and carry off as many as they could seize. One day, as I was watching at the top of a tree in our yard, I saw one of those people come into the yard of our next neighbor, but one to kidnap, there being many stout young people in it. Immediately, on this, I gave the alarm of the rogue, and he was surrounded by the stoutest of them, who entangled him with cords so that he could not escape till some of the grown people came and secured him. So we discussed this part already. We said that this is their daily routine. Okay, these are approximately the... And we said in our PowerPoint notes that during these times, there's no Meijer to go to, there's no Walmart to go to, there's no marketplace. They have to get up in the morning and go out to their farms to cultivate the land if they want to eat and have something to trade with. So the adults get out and labor in the fields, and the children assemble together in a neighbor's yard. Okay, just like I said, if your folks decide they want to go to the club on a Friday, then they send you over. You all are old enough to stay home now, but when you were younger, they probably send you over to a cousin's or a family member's house, and they would watch you. But he said he noticed that when the children get together, there's always somebody trying to kidnap one of them. So they've developed this system where one of them sit up in a tree, and they're basically playing the alarm system. And there was one person who got over the fence this one time, and he was unsuccessful because he gave off the alarm, and there were some big kids in the yard, and they were able to tangle up this adult and secure him until the other adults, the parents, came back, which would have been humiliating. Okay, it's for some kids to get you together. Okay, so let's keep reading. I'm at the bottom of the first column. But alas, ere long it was my fate to be thus attacked and to be carried off, when none of the grown people were nigh. One day, when all our people were gone out to their work, as usual, and only I and my sister were left to mind the house. 2 men and a woman got over our walls, and in a moment seized us both, and without giving us time to carry out or to make any resistance, they stopped our mouths and ran off with us into the nearest wood. Here They tied our hands and continued to carry us as far as they could till night came on, when we reached a small house where the robbers halted for refreshment and spent the night. We were then unbound, which means untied. We were then unbound, but were unable to take any food, and being quite overpowered by fatigue and grief, our only relief was some sleep, which allayed our misfortune for a short time. The next morning, we left the house and continued traveling all the day. For a long time we had kept the woods, but at last we came into a road which I believe I knew. I had now some hopes of being delivered. I need to hear more people. I had now some hopes of being delivered. It should be every single person. For we had advanced but a little way before I discovered some people in a distance, on which I began to cry out for their assistance. But my cries had no other effect than to make them tie me. Let me turn the page. Tie me faster and stop my mouth. They then put me into a large sack. They also stopped my sister's mouth and tied her hands. And in this manner, we proceeded till we were out of sight of these people. Okay? So, again, the first question that we wrote down is, who did it? Because we are nosy people, and when reading, that would be a natural inclination of who this is. Who did it? Okay? So, we want to try to figure out who did it, because it might not tell us who did it, but we can probably lead ourselves to that conclusion. So the first thing that we wrote down, because of our inference formula, and we wrote down the part of the story that would have brought about this question in the first place. This would have been the part of the story where we would have put that question mark, like she said in the annotated video. So if you don't have this down on your paper, under the respond with inferences box on the lower right hand side, you're going to put details and put 2 men and a woman got over our walls and in a moment seized us both. So majority of us copied this, but if you don't have this, Mr. Gilbert, you're writing this in the lower right hand box and you're going to label it details. Come on. Okay, because this is the part that would have brought about the question in the first place. 2 men and a woman got over our walls and in a moment seized us both. This is on page 147. The second column is line number 4. Okay? Then remember, from that inference formula, the second thing that we had to put there was our own knowledge and experience. So when it comes to making an inference, we have to bring something to the table. We have to bring something to the table. It cannot just be the facts and the details. So we have to bring some type of knowledge to the table. So we have to process this information based on what we've already experienced in our lives. What if we say that we could bring to the table based on what we know about criminals? Based on what we know about criminals, what did we say we could bring to the table about them when they are successful? If they are successful, then they are what?
We got my jewels.
But I see they didn't get your cocaine.
Oh my God, Blanche has cocaine? This is flour. I hid my jewels in the flour.
Why did you hide your jewels in the flour?
Because I didn't think they'd look there. What kind of robbers look at the flour?
That's the first place they look after the freezer.
The freezer's my other hiding place.
It's everybody's. The robbers know that. They don't even open drawers anymore.
Mama's jewels. I can never replace them. Oh, I'm just beside myself. And you want to see the mess they made in there? They about tore this place apart.
They were probably looking for drugs.
We have Malox and estrogen. many junkies have gas and hot flashes?
They are experienced. If they are successful, then they are experienced and knowledgeable about what they're doing. And only dumb criminals get caught. And dumb criminals get caught because they don't know what they're doing. It's probably their first time doing whatever it is that they set out to do. And then they mess around and get their behinds caught because they don't know what they're doing. But experienced criminals, it's hard to really catch them because they are knowledgeable and experienced in what they're doing. They have it all planned out. Even though it's a crime, it's all planned out. So what we came to the table was our knowledge, and when you do your inferences on your independent box, it's going to flow the same exact way. So you should have plus my knowledge, because that's what the formula said it should be. Facts and details coming straight from the story, okay, directly from the story, and then your knowledge coming directly from your brain, or maybe from some type of a reference guide, like a dictionary if necessary, and you add those two together for the inference. But what we said is that successful criminals are usually ones who know from experience, and they study their victims. Okay, so you should have that on your paper under the details. Plus my knowledge should look just like this. Plus my knowledge. Successful criminals are usually ones who know from experience, and they study their victims. So this is how the kidnappers would have known that if I come around this time of the day, the kids are going to be assembled together in the neighbor's yard and the adults are going to be gone, because they've done it before. Okay? They've been watching, or for some other reason. Okay? Then we have to add those two together to come to the actual inference. So we literally add the words in both of those statements together to come up with the inference. So the inference would be a combination of both of these statements put together. Literally, I have to find a way to mesh both of these together. And we came up with this. Equal sign. If you don't have this on your paper, make sure you have equal sign. We're right. Everything I'm pointing to, you should have plus my knowledge after you wrote this. Put plus my knowledge, put this down, equals inference. So you should have equals inference, because we added these two statements together, the facts and details plus our knowledge, to come up with the inference. Okay, remember, the inference is the reading in between the lines. It's taking the text further than what it initially says to us. And it doesn't always have to pertain to a text. Remember, this is about daily life also. And nobody's going to walk you around by the hand and explain everything to you, because you're almost grown. So you have to figure things out in life on your own. So we came to the inference that the woman and two men were able to seize the narrator, okay, seize the narrator within a moment, obviously because they knew, okay, they knew and studied his family's routines. Okay, so that's what we come up to. The reason that they were able to be successful, and especially being able to cover his mouth. So you knew that these were the same people from before, because they like, shoot, I got caught last time because that kid was crying out. That's what it was. That blabbermouth kid was making all that dang noise. So we're going to take him out first. Okay, he messed up the whole routine, so we're going to take him out. So it's obviously we're the same ones who came before. Okay? So now, what we have to do is we have to find evidence. So it's not good enough to just say, this is what's going on in this part of the story. Now we have to find evidence that defends our position. Okay, it makes us right. Okay, because remember, with an inference, we could be right or wrong, because we can all have different inferences, but we want something to back us up to say, this is what's going on. So now we want some proof that this is what's actually happening in the story. But let's put down some more notes. Let's annotate a little bit further. Okay, so in your notice important details box, you're going to add this to it. Because this is what we've learned so far. So you should have 1 and 2 already in there. So anyone who was not here last week and you don't have 1 and 2 in the top left-hand box, add 1 and 2 to your top left-hand box. And we're on number 3 now. And number 3.
Put number 3.
What we put down for number 3?
He was trained in the art of war.
Nope, number 3. That should have been part of number 2. So we don't have a number 3 yet. So all that should have been a part of number 2. Scott, what's up?
Yeah, we got one that said shooting javelins.
That was all part of number 2.
You didn't say that.
You told us to put it at number 3.
I said if you run out of room under number 2, just go to the back side. But it's still part of number 2.
That's Cal. That's Cal. You told us to put it at number 2.
No, it's not Cap, it's notes. Get it? It's notes. Okay. Alright, this is what you put under. If you wrote something next to number 3, it's okay. We're just going to add this to it. So just put this on the back or something. Jeez, calm down. We're going to put adults labored in the fields. Kids watched for, let's put the number 4. We're going to put nappers. No, we're just going to put as much as we can. Okay, kidnappers. Okay, I can't fit it all in here, but you would just go to the back and fit it up on there. So again, we put we're writing Miss Pam. We're writing. Okay, so adults labored in the fields. And the kids watched for kidnappers. Marcus, we're writing. Logan, we're writing. You got this already, number 3? No. Shut my mouth and call me Sarah. Okay? So we've added that much information. Okay. Now we're going to try to find some information that lends itself to who kidnapped Equiano and his sister. So we're going to continue reading, and we are on the top of page 148. Top of page 148. And we're on that second paragraph when it says when. So again, wherever I stop, make sure you all chime in with that very next word. And here we go. When we went to rest, thanks for those two. I need to hear everybody. All eyes should be on 148. First column, that second paragraph. When we went to rest the following night, they offered us some victuals, but we refused it. And the only comfort we had was in being in one another's arms all that night and bathing each other with tears. Okay, now when he says bathing each other with tears, does he literally mean that they ran a bath of their tears and said, shh, there you go, are you clean yet? Okay, we could have made an inference here. What does he mean?
He crying so much. Crying so much.
They're crying so much that it's just like really creating a waterworks on each other. They're crying on each other's shoulder. He and who? Who's this other person?
Sister.
His sister. Okay, Levon, sit up. Okay, so we're going to write down a word though, because we came across another word. We're going to write down victuals. Okay, put down victuals. We're going to put down victuals in the top right-hand box under annotate unknown words. Victuals is in that second line of the second paragraph. Second line of the second paragraph. So this is going in the top right-hand box. Gilbert. Victuals. All right. So let's continue. But alas, we were soon deprived of even the small comfort of weeping together. Meet everybody. The next day proved one of greater sorrow than I had yet experienced. For my sister and I then separated. For my sister and I were then separated, while we lay clasped in one another's arms. It was in vain that we besought them not to part us. Now, when you see that word besought, and you see the one in the top corner of it, like an exponent in math, that means that word is defined for you at the bottom in footnotes. What does besought mean? Beg.
What about class?
Oh, clasp just means to be, like grabbing each other, wrapped up with in something. Kind of like if you put your two hands together, your clasping your hands. So it was in vain that we besought or begged them not to part us. She was torn from me and immediately carried away, while I was left in a state of distraction not to be described. I cried and grieved continually, and for several days did not eat anything but what they forced into my mouth. At length, after many days traveling, during which I often changed masters, I got into the hands of a chieftain in a pleasant country. This man had 2 wives and some children, and they all used me extremely well and did all they could to comfort me, particularly the first wife, who was something like my mother. Okay, so they've been officially carried off. He felt as if, Sims turned around, he felt as if he recognized the area, and he was about to give another cry out, but they surrounded his mouth with their hands again, so he couldn't, and they ran off with him even faster. They got to this one stop where he and his sister just cried on each other's shoulders, and then he thought if that wasn't bad enough, they separated the two. So he doesn't even have anyone anymore, and now he's into the hands of a new, his first master. So he's been kidnapped and given to a master. But let's put down another word. Okay, let's put down chieftain. Put down a chieftain. And now we're going to follow the trail. Savon, sit up. Now we're going to follow the trail we put under number 3, chieftain. Now we're going to follow the trail of he and his masters. Sit up, Laban. Sit up. Sit up. Up. We put down under number 3, chieftain. All right, let's continue. So this first master of his, he notices, has 2 wives and some children, and they actually try to comfort him, even though he's the slave. They try to make him feel like it's not so bad, okay, and like he's part of the family. So we continue. Although I was a great many days' journey from my father's house, yet these people spoke exactly the same language with us. This first master of mine, as I may call him, was a smith, and my principal employment was working the bellows, which were the same kind as I had seen in my vicinity. They were in some respects not unlike the stoves here in gentlemen's kitchens, and were covered over with leather. And in the middle of that leather, a stick was fixed, and a person stood up and worked it, in the same manner as is done to pump water out of a cask with a hand pump. I believe it was gold he worked, for it was of a lovely bright yellow color, and was worn by the women on their wrists and ankles. Okay, so he's doing his principal employment as a slave, which is basically to dig for what?
Gold.
Gold. Okay, that's one of the natural resources, and remember we talked about in our PowerPoint notes that different areas have different natural resources that they take advantage of to sell and make money. So one of the natural resources in Africa, and the countries in Africa, is gold. Let's continue reading. Okay, but we can actually put down another word. We can put down vicinity. That's number 4. Vicinity. All right, we continue again. Equiano attempts to escape. These are just some background notes. But he loses hope of finding his way home and returns to his master's house. So he tried it. You know, he did try, put up a good effort, but it just didn't work for him. He didn't know where he was. Soon after my master's only daughter, soon as should be a comma right there. Soon after this, my master's only daughter and child by his first wife sickened and died, which affected him so much that for some time he was almost frantic and really would have killed himself had he not been watched and prevented. So just like he only had one sister, he noticed that his master only had one daughter. And somehow she got sick and she ended up dying. And this made the master, so distraught that he almost committed suicide about the whole ordeal. Okay. However, in a small time afterwards, he recovered, and I was again sold. So, what can we say about this situation with his first master, considering what happened to his sister? And what happened to his sister?
They got separated.
They got separated. Okay, so what happened to the master and his daughter?
They got separated.
They got separated. So what do you call that when you say what goes around comes around? Karma. Okay, so we tend to believe that the master got the energy that he put out there. And he probably thought that Equiano was bad juju, so he said, you gotta go. So let's first of all put this important idea down. Okay, since we're keeping track of masters, put first master next to number 4. First master's daughter died as a result of karma. And I'm just copying these from my other notes. I have an identical one on my laptop. So now he's going to his next master. Let's continue. So I was now carried. Yeah, I'm right there. Okay. I was now carried to the left of the sun's rising. Now, if Robert is following along, everybody should be following along. Everybody should be following along. So I was now carried to the left of the sun's rising. Okay, so he is trying to keep up with the direction that he's going in, because his ultimate goal is to get where? Back home. Okay. Through many dreary wastes and dismal woods, amidst the hideous roaring of wild beasts, the people I was sold to used to carry me very often when I was tired, either on their shoulders or on their backs. I saw many convenient, well-built sheds along the road at proper distances to accommodate the merchants and travelers. They lie in those buildings along with their wives, who often accompany them, and they always go well armed. Okay, when he says go well armed, I'm assuming he's talking about
Carrying guns.
the guns that were provided to them by
The kings.
not the
The
kings,
Europeans.
the Europeans. Okay, remember the guns were created by the Europeans. Okay, so he's talking about these people as he's being carried. He's being carried on the backs of these travelers to his next master, and he's noticing that there's all of these different residencies that look just like the ones from his house. So it's a similar setup, and he knows that these gentlemen lay up in the cut, okay, with their multiple wives, but every time they come out, they are definitely carrying their guns. Okay, so we continue. From the time I left my own nation, should be everyone, I always found somebody that understood me till I came to the seacoast. The languages of different nations did not totally differ, nor were they so copious as those of the European languages. I'm reading stuff that's not there. Those of the Europeans, particularly the English. They were therefore easily learned, and while I was journeying thus from Africa, I acquired 2 or 3 different tongues. Okay, did he literally cut off people's tongues and put them in his pocket?
No. He learned different languages.
Tongues would be languages. Okay, so we know that Africa is the continent, and it has a bunch of different countries in it. And so he's saying when he gets to these certain stops in particular places, he's noticing that the people around him are not speaking the exact same language, but they're speaking a similar language that can be easily caught on to, until he got over to being in the custody of the English, and he don't understand any of that stuff. Okay. So anyways, let's make our let's finish our inference on who oh right I'm sorry, I'm discombobulated. Let's finish getting the evidence for who kidnapped the narrator. Okay, so we want to collect some information. We said that the kidnapper is someone who knows from experience and has studied the narrator. And what information in this last little paragraph, because your evidence isn't necessarily going to be close to that. He's actually mentioned this a couple of times on this one page.
Please excuse this interruption.
Add these 2 unknown words, dismal and copious. Okay, dismal and copious, add those. So looking at that last little paragraph about what he said about the people, Alex, you got these down? About what he said about the people with the languages. What evidence can we gather to be proof of who kidnapped him? The people who kidnapped him would be who?
People who are similar to his people.
People who are similar to his people, because they what?
They speak the same language.
They speak the same and or very similar language.
They got the same tendencies.
They got the same tendencies. So we know that, are these people white or are these people African?
African.
These are African people who are kidnapping him. These are not white people who are kidnapping him or Europeans. These are African people who are kidnapping him. So what we would write down as our evidence is the following. Okay, and we would take your evidence straight from the story. There's 2 places that you could find. He mentioned it in 2 different places, but put evidence. Okay, put evidence in the same respond with inferences box if you have room, or go to the back. And I took this from page 148, the 2nd column, line number 31 if you want to count all the way down. But it says, from the time I left my own nation, I was just giving you all time to write it. From the time I left my own nation, page 148 in the 2nd column at the bottom, that last little paragraph we read about the languages. And this came directly from the book. Your evidence should come directly from the book. Where should your evidence come from?
Directly from the book.
Directly from the book. Okay, so from the time I left my own nation, I always found somebody that understood me till I came to the coast. From the time I left my own nation, I always found somebody that understood me till I came to the coast. Oh, I'm sorry, I copied it wrong. Okay, I don't know how to read. I'm just the English teacher.
Well, you should know how to read.
Hey, do too much. Okay? Or you could have put from the other page, you could have put, yet these people spoke exactly the same language as us. Either one of those will do. Yet these people spoke exactly the same language as us. Yeah, either one of those would do. Yet these people.
With us.
That's what I said.
You said as us.
No, I said with us. Now listen, you ain't gonna sit up there and tell me what I said. La 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 la, la 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 la.
You did say.
Did I say ass?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So this is our evidence that backs us up of who kidnapped him. Okay? It started with the Africans in Africa kidnapping their own and putting them into slavery. And remember, they were traded along the coast of Africa for guns and rum by the Europeans. So essentially, the Europeans paid for them. And in this story, you're going to see the difference between African and American slavery. There is American and European. So there is a difference between the two types of slavery. And so that's what you will find out from this story by the end of it. And there is a difference. All right, here we go. They were therefore easily learned. Okay, let's have everybody. And while I was journeying thus through Africa, I acquired 2 or 3 different tongues. In this manner, I have been traveling for a considerable time. When one evening, to my great surprise, whom should I? I'm sorry, I stumbled. Thank you. Stumbled on my words. Whom should I see brought to the house where I was? But my dear sister. As soon as she saw me, she gave a loud shriek. And ran into my arms. I was quite overpowered. Neither of us could speak, but for a considerable time clung to each other in mutual embraces, unable to do anything but weep. Our meeting affected is basically like affect, but it means to affect someone emotionally. Our meeting affected all who saw us, and indeed, I must acknowledge, in honor of those sable destroyers of human rights, that I never met with any ill treatment or saw any offered to their slaves, except tying them when necessary to keep them from running away. Okay, so now we're at the area of our next question. So this area is bringing about some uncertainty, some confusion, and so we would normally put a question mark here, like she said in the annotating video, but I went ahead and came up with a question for you. So this is your next question under Connect Questions, the left lower box. Left lower box, the question is, why? We're writing. Why did lower left-hand box in your annotation Inferences model box? All right. Why did he honor the destroyers of human rights? Why did he honor the destroyers of human rights? Okay, so that's what we want to know. If these are destroyers, first of all, why would you ever honor a destroyer? But someone who's destroying human rights, why would you ever want to honor them? Okay, so this time you are going to start your own inference formula without me putting it up there. Okay, so underneath, or you may have to go on the back of the respond with inferences box. Go on the back of your respond with inferences box, and what are, remember it is the area of uncertainty that brings about a question. So that would be the facts and the details for our inference formula. What is the area of uncertainty that brought about this question? Remember, we take it directly from the text.
Well, you said what?
Okay, so let's try that again. So remember, in order to produce an inference, inferences stem from questions. Wait, hold on. I need people's eyes, because I need us to go all on the same page. So let's stop writing for a second. I need, still need Scott and Anderson. I need us to pay attention for a second. And then I need Marcus. Okay, so again, we just wrote our second question. You all are going to go through the inference formula on your own, but I'm going to guide you through it. I didn't write this one down. I'm going to take the training wheels off a little bit, and you're going to go through this one on your own. So remember, the only way that we produce an inference is from a question. And remember, questions come from areas of uncertainty. Those would be the facts and the details of the inference formula. So what is the area of uncertainty that we just read over that would have brought about this question in the first place? What's the area of uncertainty? Remember, we take it directly from the text. What's the area of uncertainty?
We want to read it out.
If you find it, raise a hand. Okay, Scott.
I must acknowledge in honor of those stable destroyers of human rights that I never met with any ill treatment or saw any offered to their slaves except trying them with necessary to keep them from running away.
Thank you. So that's the area of uncertainty that would have brought about the question in the first place. So remember, we take the facts and the details directly from the text. So that's our fact and details. Let's write that down. I must acknowledge, so label details. You should be on the back of your respond with inferences box. You should be on the back of your respond with inferences box. You may have to add on another sheet of paper. Okay, because your inferences are long. Then put details. Because these are the facts and the details. Put details. Then you're copying directly from where Scott just read. Directly from that paragraph. You always take the details and the facts directly from the text. I must acknowledge. We're writing. Man, I don't want to write, Mr. Kelly. I just want a warning, so I get kicked out. Okay, so again, we have down our question in the connect questions box, and then we also have down our, in our respond with inferences box, we also have down our details. Now we have to add our knowledge. So put plus my knowledge. First of all, who is he talking about? They. Who's these they people? The slave owners. Thank you. What do we know about typical slave owners?
They all beat their slaves.
We usually hear that they beat their slaves. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, we usually hear that they beat their slaves. So, does anyone want to offer anything else of what we want to bring to the table about these slave owners? They usually treat their slaves badly. Even aside from beating them, they usually treat them badly. So, that's what we want to bring to the table. Does anyone else want to bring anything else to the table? No one? On the topic of slave owners? Alright, so next to my knowledge, let's put what Ms. Scott and Ms. Logan contributed. They usually, slave owners usually beat and treat, not trick or treat, but beat and treat their slaves, Chris, we're writing, beat and treat their slaves badly. Beat and treat their slaves badly. Usually slave owners, I'm just repeating. Usually slave owners beat and treat their slaves badly. Okay, so now drop down to the next line. Put equal sign inference. Equal sign inference. And I want you to try to put those two statements together. Okay? So I want you to try to put, he wants to honor those sable destroyers of human rights because usually, so you're putting those two statements together. Find a way to mesh those two statements together and make them make sense. Okay? So he wants to honor those sable destroyers of human rights because usually slave owners, blah, 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 blah. Put those two statements together and make them make sense. Sense it up. You got boo-boo? So we're meshing those two statements together. The facts and the details, remember we got to add that for our inference. We got to add that because it's a mathematical formula. We got to add that to our own knowledge. So we want to say, he wants to honor, because that's what he said, that's our facts and details. He wants to honor those sable destroyers of human rights because usually, yes, we're making our inference. You should have put equal sign, Rob. You should put equal sign inference, okay, and put those two statements together. He wants to honor those sable destroyers of human rights because usually slave masters beat and treat their slaves badly. Okay? So now we want to find again some evidence to get that aha moment, told you so type moment, told you I knew what I was talking about type moment. So we have to find some evidence. So we just continue reading. We're trying to look for basically some information that shows a difference between the two types of slavery. Okay, these people who he is experiencing and the people who we usually consider to be slave masters. Who do we usually associate with being a slave master? So we just learned Caucasian people, right? European Caucasian people. Here, take 17. Smith. Oh yeah. Thank you. So petty. So dang petty. All right. So we usually associate the slave masters with being Caucasians. However, we learned that these are Africans. Okay, so just for kicks and giggles, why do you think that he wants us to know that these Africans didn't treat him badly.
Just show that you're not like the way. Just show that.
Yeah, probably to show the difference between the two. You know, yeah, they all did slavery. They're all wrong. Yes, but it was much worse on the other side. Okay, so let's continue reading. Smith, turn the power off and put that away. Open up your brown African American literature textbook on the bottom of your desk to page 149. Okay, so let's keep going. So I'm at where it says when. So remember, wherever I stop, you all say the next word together in unison. In the first column, the beginning of that next paragraph. All right. Beginning of the next paragraph, first column. Yeah. Mm-hmm. When these people, thank you, knew we were brother and sister, they indulged us to be together. And the man, to whom I suppose we belong, lay with us, he in the middle, while she and I held one another by the hands across his breast all night. And thus for a while, so, you know, they're just sleeping on his chest, their children. You know, their children. He's remember, he's a kid still. Huh?
I can say his breast.
Comedian.
No, and that's why we don't call it that derogatory term. That is the name of that muscle. They're called breasts. They're not breasts, but that's your the breast tissue of your pectoral muscle. And everyone has a breast tissue of their pectoral muscle. Petty people in here. All right. Where am I?
You
he and the nine past that. Oh, we read together. Okay.
Rest all night.
Okay. And thus for a while we forgot our misfortunes and the joy of being together. But even this small comfort was soon to have an end. For scarcely had the fatal warning appeared when she was again torn from me forever. I was now more miserable, if possible, than before. The small relief which her presence gave me from pain was gone, and the wretchedness, not to be confused with ratchetness, of my situation was redoubled by my anxiety after her fate, and my apprehensions lest her sufferings should be greater than mine when I could not be with her to alleviate them. Okay, so here we could make an inference without writing it down. We could take this part of the text a little bit further and read in between the lines of what's going on here, just because of the little buzzwords that are in here. We see the word fatal. What does fatal mean?
Bad.
Deadly. It's bad, but a little further than bad. Fatal means deadly. Whenever you hear fatal, you know, we're here on Detroit's west side. There was just a fatal accident at the corner of, that means the person died. Okay? So then we see the word fate. Okay, what does fate mean?
Fate means
It's a fate.
history, destiny.
The destiny outcome, the outcome of someone's destiny. Okay, it's the outcome of someone's destiny. This is your fate. This is your fate to be the golden child.
Yeah, I've heard it.
All right, but so we see the destiny. The outcome of the destiny is fatal or deadly. Who do we think he's talking about?
His sister and brother.
His sister what? Died. Okay, so his sister died. So this is why she was taken away from him forever, because she died. Did it tell us that she died? No. So we just made an inference there. We just took it further than what it said. We read it between the lines. It would have been real elementary and boring if it just said the girl died. Okay, but we are a lot smarter than that, and we can come to these conclusions on our own. No cap, period. Sis. I shouldn't say that. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's continue. We are at the bottom, that bottom paragraph, first column. I did not long remain after my sister. I was again sold and carried through a number of places till after traveling a considerable time, I came to a town called Tinma, in the most beautiful country I had yet seen in Africa. It was extremely rich, and there were many rivulets which flowed through it, and supplied a large pond in the center of the town where the people washed. Pardon? Yeah, so center, okay, so, no, this is how center is spelled in Europe. Even though they speak English, they spell their words a little bit different. You would spell theater with them like this also. Instead of ER, it's RE. So when he eventually was released from being a slave, and he was educated in Europe. Okay, here I first saw and tasted coconuts, which I thought superior to any nuts I had ever tasted before. We're gonna run past this part so y'all get all the mature stuff. And that's why we rushing through this, because y'all about to get real immature on this part. He's talking about he's never tasted coconuts before.
Oh my God.
No, not at all. Okay, and the trees, which were loaded with also, were also interspersed among the houses, which had commodious shades adjoining, and were in some manner as ours, the insides being neatly plastered and whitewashed. Here I also saw and tasted for the first time sugar cane. And remember we said from our PowerPoint notes that down in the Bahamas, they were producing sugar. Okay? So, their money consisted of little white shells in that picture above, the size of the fingernail.
That's the money?
Yes. You know, they don't have dollars back then, and you know, they're not in America either. He's in Tinma, in Africa.
How can they tell like which one is $5? They all work.
It's a good question. Probably the different sizes and stuff, or the different color textures on it. Basically.
Fingernail.
I can't find that. Okay. I was sold for 172 of these by a merchant who lived at this place. I had been about 2 or 3 days at his house when a wealthy widow and neighbor of his came there one evening and brought with her an only son, a young gentleman about my own age and size. Here they saw me, and having taken a fancy to me, I was bought of the merchant and went home with them. Her house and premises were situated close to one of those rivulets I have mentioned, and were the finest I ever saw in Africa. They were very extensive, and she had a number of slaves to attend her. The next day I was washed and perfumed, and when mealtime came, I was led into the presence of my mistress. What's a mistress?
A wife of somebody. Like, a mistress is like the owner of the house, like the girl, the female, the lord.
Well, it is, but what do we usually associate with being a mistress?
The partner of the cheater.
Basically the side chick. Okay, we usually associate a mistress with being the married the woman that a married man is cheating with. But the primary definition of it that we need to know in this situation is a woman with power who's in control of her household. So, but in regular conversation, we usually use it as the side chick. Okay. And ate and drank before her with her son. This filled me with astonishment. We turned the page, you all. And I could scarcely avoid expressing my surprise that the young gentleman should suffer me, who was bound, to eat with him who was free. And not only so, but that he would not at any time either eat or drink till I had taken first, because I was the eldest, which was agreeable to our custom. Indeed, everything here and their treatment of me made me forget that I was a slave. The language of these people resembled ours so nearly that we understood each other perfectly. They had also the very same customs as we. There were likewise slaves daily to attend us, while my young master and I, with other boys, sported with our darts and bows and arrows, as I had been used to do at home. In this resemblance to my former happy state, I passed about 2 months, and now I began to think I was to be adopted into the family, and was beginning to be reconciled to my situation, and to forget by degrees my misfortunes, when all at once the delusion vanished. For without the least previous knowledge, one morning early, while my dear master and companion was still asleep, I was awakened out of my reverie to fresh sorrow and hurried away even amongst the uncircumcised. Okay? So, first of all, what does circumcised mean?
Little.
No, it does not mean little. My gentleman should be able to answer this question. What does circumcised mean? No, it's not about size at all.
Circle size. It's a small circle.
A piece of skin.
Piece of skin taken away from the
For the nuts.
It gets cut off from the penis. We're old enough in here, so if you're a part of a certain religion, your parents will give the doctors the okay, if you're a male, to cut off the skin from the penis. That's called being circumcised. You get that done as an infant. All right, so you should have out your annotation inference model box, and we're just finishing up these last little slots, and this is the end of the class practice. So I'm going to we're going to finish filling this out, and then I'm going to let you know what you are expected to do in the independent practice. All right. So, first thing is first. So far in the story, where we left off at is he was in the custody of another master. Okay, this one is this one is master number 2. Okay, this one is master number 2, and so this master is actually a woman, and she's wealthy, and this master has a son, and the son is a little bit younger than Equiano is. But one thing he notices is that at this residency, he is treated more like part of the family. So he's noticing that he's not doing the work that he was doing with his first master, which his first master, we said that he was basically mining for gold. Remember, he said he was working the bellows. Okay? He's not doing no. I'm sorry. This is his third master. Yeah, this is third master. Yeah, this is third master. But he's not doing the work that he was doing with his first master. He's actually having fun. Okay, he said that he's playing around, with the master's son, and they're throwing darts, and he attends dinner with them at the dinner table, and he's actually allowed to eat first. So he doesn't feel like a servant. He feels more like a what? Family member. He feels like a brother. Okay? But then, out of nowhere, he gets kidnapped yet again. And he's kind of surprised that he got kidnapped and not the master's son, because he said he was hurried away even amongst the uncircumcised. And we talked about what circumcised means. Okay, so if the son is not circumcised, so we could kind of do a little inference here. If the son is not yet circumcised, we can assume that he's probably very young, okay, which Equiano is probably assuming that they only kidnapped the young because he and his sister were young when they were kidnapped. Or he maybe is assuming that, the master's son is of a certain, religion. Because usually it's more like Christians who get circumcised. And you get circumcised just because it's more clean. It's a cleaner way of grooming your genitals. That's what you get circumcised for, but also for religious reasons. Okay. But he's confused at why he was taken away and not this little boy. Anyhow, let's try it again. Thus at the very moment I dreamed of the greatest happiness, I found myself most miserable, and it seemed as if fortune wished to give me this taste of joy, only to render the reverse more poignant. The change I now experienced was as painful as it was sudden and unexpected. It was a change indeed from the state of bliss to a scene which is inexpressible by me, as it discovered to me an element I had never before beheld, and of which till then had no idea, and wherein such instances of hardship and cruelty continually occurred, as I can never reflect on but with horror. Okay? So we can kind of make a little inference here orally. What do we think is about to happen to Equiano? Anderson, turn around. What do we think is about to happen to Equiano?
Something real bad.
Somewhere bad.
Something real bad.
Something real bad. What's that something real bad?
Another master is going to come get him.
Pardon?
Another master is going to come get him.
Another master is probably going to come get him. Well, they already did come get him. They already did come get him, and what he's about to describe to us, he said, is instances of hardship and cruelty that continually occurred, as I can never reflect on but with horror. Okay, so he hasn't reflected on the first couple of masters with horror, but this next master he is going to reflect on with horror. Who do we think this next master is?
The third master? No, the fourth master?
Yes, who do we think this is?
A man.
Well, what type of man?
White.
I'll say powerful.
White man.
Well, okay. What makes you think that the new master is going to be white?
Because white people beat on black people and black Americans was easier on the slaves, like having treated the slave badly. That's what the white people do.
Okay, thank you. So we've learned from what he told us earlier in the story that Africans enslaved Africans also, and slavery has existed all around the world since times of the Bible. So this isn't anything new. But he said that slavery with Africans actually wasn't so bad. He doesn't have really any bad things to say about what they did to him, because they just tied him up and stopped him from leaving. And sometimes he had to do work, other times he was treated like a family member. But he's now in the custody of a new master, and he said he can only describe this as horror. And so the reason that he probably wanted to, again, finishing up and getting evidence for that previous inference that we did yesterday, the reason that he probably wants to tell us that he never met with any ill treatment from the African masters is because his treatment with the European masters was described as horrid. Okay? And that will be the evidence that we will collect exactly what he says in this last paragraph. So remember, the evidence comes directly from the text to try to back up what you say your inference is. Okay? So his experience with the European masters is probably going to be horrible. Okay? So this is what you're doing for the independent practice, and with the independent practice, remember the key word is independent. So you are going to read your section of the story, or your selection of the story. Your selection of the story is from that second column on page 150 all the way to the end of the story, which I think it goes to 155. Okay, so from that second column on 150 all the way to the end of the story. And you're going to read it in its entirety, because you are doing every single thing that we've done so far, annotating and making inferences all on your own. Okay, so all next week it's going to sound just like this. That's how it's going to sound, because you're going to be reading and annotating. Okay, so the next thing you're going to be doing is making a total of 6 inferences, okay, in the areas that Mr. Kelly specifically marks off for the class. Okay, again from page 150 to the end. And again, I told you in the books they're already marked off in red, and they correspond to those questions that I have to guide you. So remember, areas of uncertainty lend themselves to questions. Questions create opportunities to make inferences and take that part of the story further so we can comprehend and understand what's going on in there. We don't want that area of uncertainty to stay uncertain. High school and beyond, we want to understand. We want to read in between the words. We want to figure it out. So we make inferences and find evidence to back it up. Okay, to basically make us correct. Okay, so my questions are in the areas that I know are going to trip you up and be confusing for you, and those are going to lead you to make your inferences with the same exact formula. Knowledge and details, facts and details, just like it's on the other slide. Just like we did in the full process, facts and details, which you would take directly from the story, plus your knowledge, which you have to sit there and think, equals a combination of the two, which is an inference. And your inference should look like some type of an answer to that question if you combined the two correctly. Facts and the details plus your knowledge and experience. Okay? Then you're going to annotate your section of the story by, when I say highlighting, that was if I were to give you your own copy of it. But what you're going to do is use the annotating inference independent box, because you're going to create one just like it, but it's going to be for your independent practice. And you're going to look for just two important ideas on each page. Okay, so on each page, at least look for two important ideas. You will have a total of approximately 8 to 10 important ideas. If you only stop at 8, I won't have a heart attack. But 8 to 10 important ideas. Okay. You need to also make sure that you ask a question of each page before you leave that page. Ask one question in the margin. If we were writing in the book, it would be in the margin, but you're going to put yours in your connect questions area on your annotate inference model box. Okay? And then you are going to find 2 unknown words per page. Okay, so again, a total of between 8 and 10 unknown words, but this time you're going to define those unknown words. You're not just going to write them down, you're going to actually define them. Okay, and then you will see on page 155, there are 6 questions called interpreting meaning, and you're going to answer those 6 interpreting meaning questions. Okay, so that's what we're working on all next week. Any questions on any of that? Okay.